If you follow true crime, then you've probably heard plenty of horror stories about the darker side of the internet. The case I'm about to tell you about has everything: an illicit affair, revenge, blackmail, and of course, murder. But first, I'm Vanessa, and welcome to Unmasked. As many of you know, I'm just now returning from taking a rather long break from the channel, so it'd be really awesome if you could show your support by hitting the subscribe, the thumbs up, the notification bell, and setting to all so you'll be notified of all of my upcoming videos. I myself have plenty of experience with the darker side of the internet. For the past 2 years, I've been dealing with stalking, which means going to court, dealing with lawyers, dealing with police, getting restraining orders, and all of the unfortunate stuff that goes along with it. However, that's a video for another time. So based on my own experiences, I figured what better case to dive into for our first video back. So sit back and get comfy as I tell you all about the very twisted story of the TikTok murders. It was 1:30 a.m. on February 11th, 2022 in Leicester, England. The Monopoly 8, as they would later be coined by the press, were following each other in their two vehicles. As they passed the A46 double highway near Six Hills, they saw the ball of fire. A silver Skoda Fabia that was now just billowing smoke and growing flames licking the night sky. If you looked close enough, you could see the silhouette of one of the bodies through the flames. As the group passed, one of the 8 dropped her head into her hands and began to sob uncontrollably. If only she could go back. How had it ever gone thus far? Mahek Bukhari was born in England on May 22, 1999, to her parents Ali Rasa and Ansreen Bukhari. She grew up with her parents and her brother in a 3-bedroom house in Stoke-on-Trent, England. Stoke-on-Trent is located in central England, has a population of over 300,000 people and growing, and is basically known as the world capital of pottery. Mahek lived a very comfortable life. Her father was a security guard and her mother worked at a pharmacy. She went to high school at St. Margaret Ward Catholic Academy, where she earned mediocre grades. After high school, she went on to major in fashion, which was her absolute passion, at Manchester Metropolitan University. At 5'2" and only 120 pounds, Mahek was small, but she had a huge personality. There was no mistaking that Mahek was beautiful, but the opinions about her from her fellow classmates definitely varied. She was known as being extremely self-obsessed, and although she was quite popular in school, she lacked any true close friends. Her acquaintances also recalled that she liked to brag a lot, and she loved to show off all of her newly acquired possessions. In the fall of 2019, Mahek decided she wanted to be famous. Going by the name Maybe Vlogs on TikTok, she started making videos about makeup and fashion. As her TikToks began gaining views, she fortuitously decided to drop out of school and become a full-time social media influencer. Her journey to become famous online was definitely a family affair. In the beginning, she sometimes featured her brother and her parents on her videos. Her mother, Ansreen, was 43 years old in 2019. Ansreen Bukhari was born in Pakistan in 1976, and when she was growing up, she had dreams of becoming a flight attendant and getting to see the world. However, her parents had other plans, forbidding her from going to school and arranging a marriage between her and her husband Ali Rasa when she was in her early 20s. Ansreen went from being a teenager to a housewife and mother, having to put her own dreams and aspirations on a shelf. However, by all accounts, her marriage was a happy one and her family was everything to her. Mahek and her mother were extremely close. In fact, they referred to themselves as having a unique and, quote, elite relationship. It could be argued that Ansreen was Mahek's only true friend. They made the most of their sister-like closeness, and Mahek started putting Ansreen in her TikToks. Mahek quickly realized that the videos featuring her mother got 4 to 5 times the views that her solo videos did. By this time, Mahek had amassed a following of 129,000 on TikTok, 30,000 on Instagram, and 4,000 on YouTube. Brands started reaching out to her, and she would frequently travel to different cities and stay in hotels for events. Her mother, Ansreen, would always accompany her on these trips. Mahek's father, Ali Rasa, encouraged Ansreen's involvement in their daughter's new business and was relieved that she was able to travel with her and make sure that Mahek was safe and taken care of. As Mahek's newfound influencer status continued to grow, Ansreen found herself loving the spotlight and the sudden attention that she began receiving, especially the attention from men. Ansreen and Mahek were invited to all kinds of events at restaurants and hookah lounges, and Ansreen was now living a life where she was meeting all kinds of new people and doing the traveling that she'd always dreamed of when she was younger. Unfortunately, she was about to meet the man who would set events into motion that would change the course of her entire life. In 2019, Saqib Hussein began chatting with Ansreen on a meetup app called Azar. They eventually exchanged numbers and soon began talking on the phone. The relationship picked up intensity rather quickly, and soon they were talking every day for most of the day. Saqib told Ansreen that he was 27. However, he was only 18 years old. Despite their age gap, Saqib was instantly smitten with Ansreen. Ansreen had another affair prior to this one when she was on the road with Mahek. She had met a married man in his 30s, and the two had a brief fling, but it had ended quietly and uneventfully. Things were very different with Saqib. He had a very intense personality and reportedly had a history of raging and acting out when his girlfriends had ended relationships with him in the past. Eventually, Ansreen and Saqib began meeting up at hotels. Saqib came on strong, showering his new lover with all kinds of gifts, including clothes, shoes, and an Apple Watch. He took her out for lavish meals whenever he could. He had no problem consistently sending gifts to her home as well, which Ansreen would explain away to the rest of her family as being gifts from fans. Ansreen later recalled that initially Saqib made her feel young and exciting again, and that she was very flattered by all of the attention that she was receiving. However, Ansreen started to see some red flags that gave her pause, and the novelty began to wear off. One of the first, biggest issues was that Saqib demanded all of her time. He would complain if he couldn't be on the phone with her all day every day and demanded to know her every move. If she didn't report back what she was doing and who she was talking to all day, Saqib would allegedly burst into jealous rages. As Saqib's feelings intensified, Ansreen's were quickly cooling off. There are conflicting reports about what Saqib's family knew about the relationship. However, Saqib was head over heels in love, and it was doubtful anyone would have been able to talk him out of it. Naturally, some of their FaceTime calls became sexual, and Saqib would have Ansreen remove her clothes and perform certain acts. She later claimed that she was unaware that he was screen recording their intimate calls. He also took pics and videos of them engaging in sexual activities when they met up in person at the hotels. Ansreen claimed that she would always ask him to delete them afterwards, and he would always assure her that he did. Saqib and Ansreen's intense affair carried on for over 2 years, but Ansreen began to feel guilty towards her family and overwhelmed with the entire situation. She didn't feel that Saqib was stable and someone that she could continue to have an affair with. He was a ticking time bomb, and she wanted out. However, she knew Saqib well enough to know that breaking things off was going to be an absolute nightmare. But if that was Ansreen's experience with Saqib, his friends and family had a very different impression of him. Saqib's family saw him as very loving and hardworking with a great sense of humor. He had a passion for expensive cars and designer clothes. He was close to his siblings and extended family and always tried to be supportive when someone was going through a hard time. On December 10th, 2021, Ansreen met up with Saqib at a hotel so that she could officially end the relationship. Saqib was completely devastated and begged Ansreen to change her mind. They ended up sleeping together that night, which made things even worse. After their hotel meetup, Saqib started flooding Ansreen's phone with text, calls, and voicemails nonstop. He sent her pics of lavish gifts that he wanted to buy for her to entice her to reconsider their breakup. Sensing that Saqib was losing control, Ansreen decided to block him. However, Saqib was not going to be ignored. He began coming into Mahek's TikTok lives and demanding she tell her mother to contact him. He also began blowing up Mahek's phone with obsessive calls and texts. During one call, Mahek angrily responded, "She ain't a dog, don't effing raise your voice at me." It's unclear exactly when Mahek became aware of her mother's relationship with Saqib, but many believed that she had to have known long before it ended. Witnesses saw Mahek and her mother at brand events where Ansreen was publicly kissing Saqib, not worried at all about Mahek's presence. Saqib was a man obsessed and broken. He made over 1,700 calls to Ansreen after she ended their relationship in December of 2021. Of those calls, 1,100 were less than 3 seconds long. Court documents show that on her end, Ansreen made 200 calls back to him, with just a handful lasting over 3 minutes. Around this time, Mahek started receiving harassing phone calls and was horrified to see that someone had released deep-fake pics of her online. The images were other women's naked bodies with her head photoshopped on. However, many of her friends and family were confused and thought that the pics were actually her. Mahek was infuriated because she had worked hard to show a pure image online based off of her strict Muslim faith and her close-knit family. Mahek and Ansreen both knew that it had to be Saqib behind everything that was happening. In addition to the harassing calls, Saqib began threatening to come over and tell Ansreen's husband and her son about their affair. Ansreen began slipping into a depression, and Mahek assured her that she would take care of everything. Mahek contacted Saqib directly and told him to leave her family alone. He coolly responded that with one click, he could destroy her business, her reputation, and her family. After all, how would it look to her fans that her 45-year-old mother had been having an illicit affair with an 18-year-old? Mahek was livid. She didn't work this hard to let her mother and some lovesick fanboy screw up the brand she had carefully and strategically cultivated. She calmly looked at her mother and said, "I'll have him jumped. He won't know what day it is." In January of 2022, Saqib wasn't getting any better. In fact, he was getting much, much worse. He decided that the only way to get Ansreen's attention was to turn up the heat even more. He gave her an ultimatum to either give him another chance or he was going to publish her nude pics and videos. He even threatened to send them directly to her husband and to her son. Ansreen recalled that during these calls filled with all kinds of vile threats, he would usually end up begging her back. Ansreen was beyond done with Saqib and now saw him as manipulative and dangerous. In addition to the blackmail, Saqib told Ansreen that he wanted $3,800 in exchange for her nude pics and images. He calculated that was the amount that he had spent on her gifts and dinners during the relationship. In response, Mahek called him and said, "I'm sorry that this year you'll be gone, Saqib." Meanwhile, Ansreen's husband, Ali Rasa, received a message from an account on TikTok implying that his wife had been having an affair. He deleted the message, blocked the account, and immediately put it out of his mind. He considered it meaningless online trolling. Ansreen knew that she could always go to the police and press charges against Saqib for extortion and harassment. She would also easily be able to obtain a restraining order against him. However, that would cause everything to become public, and she just couldn't risk that. On Mahek's part, she knew that a scandal like this could be very bad for business. She was worried about her father's reaction, but more importantly to her, she was worried about her fans' reactions. She was also watching her mother break down in tears daily, saying that she couldn't take another day of Saqib's threats. Ansreen and Mahek decided to take matters into their own hands and come up with a plan to stop the threats once and for all. With Mahek's beauty and her successful online presence, she had no shortage of men willing to jump if she needed anything. Mahek decided that's exactly the direction she would go. She contacted a fellow creator and friend of hers, Rakan Karwan. Not wanting to admit that it was her mother having the affair with Saqib, Mahek told Rakan that it was her that had a relationship with Saqib and that he was now using her nude pics and videos to try and extort her for money. Rakan called Saqib and asked for proof of the $3,800 that he claimed to have spent. He told Saqib that if he wanted his money, he'd have to agree to meet up in person. Saqib's sister overheard the call and immediately felt a sense of dread. She told Saqib that it sounded like a setup and not to meet up with anyone. Saqib dismissed her concerns and told her to stay out of it. By February of 2022, Saqib's sister had been watching her brother slip further and further into a dark place of rage and depression, and she had told their parents that she was really worried. Her father asked that she try and talk to him, but Saqib had shut everyone off and didn't want to hear their advice. Saqib told Rakan that he wanted the money deposited into his account over the next 24 to 48 hours. However, Mahek and Ansreen knew that paying off Saqib would accomplish nothing. How could they ever be sure that he actually deleted the pics and videos and wouldn't just resurface later, asking for more money? Their brilliant plan that they concocted was to set a trap to lure him out, scare the hell out of him, get their hands on his phone, and destroy all of the evidence themselves. And, as they say, man plans and God laughs. On February 10th, Saqib's sister noticed that her brother was even more withdrawn than usual. He had basically stopped interacting with the entire family days ago. Concerned, she went into his room and asked him to tell her what was going on. He refused to open up to her and just kept telling her to leave. What his sister didn't know was that Saqib had just checked his account and saw that the money had not been deposited. In anger, he called Mahek and left her a voicemail telling her that he was coming over to their family home to tell her father everything. 30 minutes after he left that message, Mahek called him back and told him that if he wanted his money, he'd have to agree to meet up later in person that night. Saqib agreed. Saqib didn't drive, so he called one of his oldest and longest friends, 18-year-old Hashim Ijazuddin, and asked him if he'd be willing to drive him to Leicester to collect a debt. He didn't elaborate on the situation or give any other details. Hashim was the type of person who was always willing to drop everything and help someone out. He was known as a great kid who spent his time playing soccer and hanging out with his friends and family. He was also known as being incredibly generous. Even though it was really short notice and it was quite a drive, Hashim heard how important this sounded to Saqib and he agreed to take him. Meanwhile, Mahek had formed a group of 8 people to carry out their plans that night. Mahek's friend Rakan Karwan enlisted the help of his best friend Rais Jamal, his cousin Amir Jamal, as well as their friends Natasha Akhtar, Mohammed Patel, and Sanaf Gula Mustafa. Mahek instructed the group that they were to jump Saqib and destroy his phone to get rid of any evidence of the affair. She asked that they wear all black with balaclavas to cover their identities. They would take 2 vehicles, with the drivers being Rais Jamal driving a blue Seat Leon and Rakan Karwan driving an Audi TT. None of the 8 people were carrying any money to give to Saqib. The promise of the payoff was all a setup, just as Saqib's sister had feared. At 11 p.m., Saqib and Hashim left to go to the meeting spot that Mahek had chosen, which was a Tesco superstore. After mistakenly driving to the wrong one, Saqib and Hashim traveled across town and arrived at the correct Tesco around 1:15 a.m. in the early morning hours of February 11th. This is actual CCTV footage from their meeting. As they pulled up, Saqib immediately knew that something wasn't right. Instead of just Mahek and Ansreen, he saw 2 vehicles full of people wearing balaclavas. He knew he'd been tricked. He panicked and told Hashim to take off. As they sped out of the parking lot, the 2 vehicles followed them out. Both cars began chasing Saqib and Hashim as Mahek repeatedly called Saqib, demanding he pull over. Saqib refused. Mahek then said, "Watch what I do to you." Saqib then made a frantic call to emergency services, begging the police for help, while the two cars attempted to box him in and force he and Hashim off the road, reaching speeds of over 100 miles an hour. Saqib was terrified and stated to the 999 operator, "They're hitting into the back of the car very fast. Please, I'm begging you. I'm going to die." Mahek's two vehicles of friends had now been chasing Saqib and Hashim for 10 miles. When their attempts to box them in and get them to pull over failed, they decided to ram into Hashim's vehicle to force them off the road. Race rammed Hashim's vehicle 3 times while Saqib was on the phone with the police. The first two made contact with the rear of his car, and the third one struck the side, which caused him to lose control and fly across the highway. On the 999 call, a scream can be heard, followed by a loud crash, and then silence. Hashim's silver Skoda hit the curb and flew into the center median, splitting in two. The impact was so violent that the engine detached and went flying through the air. Hashim's car struck a tree and burst into flames, trapping both men inside with no hope of escape or rescue. As Ansreen saw the flames engulf Hashim's car, she crumpled in her seat and burst into tears. The two vehicles containing Mahek, Ansreen, and their accomplices sped by, not stopping to offer any help and making no calls to emergency services. At 1:30 a.m., a truck was passing by and saw the flames, immediately calling the police. When the fire department arrived, they put out the flames and made the grisly discovery of the two men's bodies inside. Mahek and her group of accomplices are seen on CCTV checking their vehicles for damage after leaving the crime scene. The group is then seen walking back after hiding their cars. Police quickly arrived on the scene and began assessing the situation and collecting all of the camera footage from the nearby streets. It didn't take them long to connect Saqib's emergency call a few minutes earlier to the horrific scene that was laid out in front of them. After reviewing the footage of the chase, they knew they were dealing with something much more sinister than a simple car accident. Investigators found Saqib's phone, but it was burnt beyond recognition and of no use to them, so they obtained a warrant for his iCloud. When they downloaded his phone, they discovered the evidence of the affair and all of the subsequent blackmail and threats. At 4:45 a.m. that morning, police started making arrests. Mahek and Ansreen had returned home and gone to sleep. Mahek was awakened by the sound of her father and brother speaking to police officers in their living room. She immediately reached for her phone and saw dozens of missed calls from Rakan. He had messaged her that police had found the vehicles and arrested one of the owners, Natasha Akhtar. Mahek began frantically deleting the contents of her phone. She then joined the rest of her family in the living room and began to spin her lies about where they had been the night before. The following is the body cam from when police came to Mahek's house that morning.
Me and May went.
No, yeah, we were out.
Where were you? Where was that?
So we stayed here, and then we went straight to Nottingham.
Right. Okay. In the Audi.
Yes, Audi. Yeah.
Right.
When police asked both Ansreen and Mahek for their phones, Mahek intentionally gave them the wrong password, causing the phone to reset to its factory settings. The two women were arrested and taken into the station for questioning. Ansreen was sullen and refused to talk. However, Mahek couldn't stop talking. Unaware that Saqib had made that last call to emergency services, Mahek, cold and confident, sat down with investigators and began to spin her elaborate web of lies.
Close. I've always said to myself, I'm a very good driver when it comes to this. I've been driving for 5 years, 4 to 5 years, and I've said to myself, always keep a 2 to 3 second rule gap, always, when I've said to myself, always done that. So this car's come not close, I've always braked. So I was doing 60, it was 70, I think it was 70 on the dual carriage or 60, I was doing 50 straight away, went back, went to 50 to 60, went back. This car didn't do anything to me. I don't know who, just a normal car going on the right to the left. The silver car, I don't know which brand it was, model, it's come zooming down. I've kept this 2 to 3 second rule gap, and then the blue Leon's in front, I'm at the back. This silver car's come and cut into the middle, so we're basically all 3 cars very close. I braked and I said to my mum, what is this car trying to do? And my mum saying, May, just keep your distance, everything's going to be okay, it's okay. Just a reckless, people just reckless because they know 40. This car was not threatening me, but agitating the blue car. And it was just harassing, like the blue car was trying to let you go, like go, you can go now because I'm letting you go. But this silver car was not letting the blue car go. I don't know who they are, I didn't even see the silver car as well. And the silver car, all I hear is like a you can hear like a bang, but not a big bang. It was like you hit behind me, basically. The silver cars hit the blue car at the back like a touch, but you can tell the blue car has gone a bit faster. So I looked at my mum and I goes, Mum, what is going on? What is wrong with this? Are they I don't know if they're drunk, what are they trying to do to this blue car in general? So my mum goes, May, like I said, leave it, you're not involved, you don't know what's going on, you just go straight on and leave it. I goes, okay, that's fine. We've gone forward and the silver cars hit the back of the blue car. The blue car, see it, like Leon's gone, completely gone. As soon as I've turned around, this silver car's gone. Out from the, I didn't see, all I've seen is they've hit, and all I see is right. And I didn't see the car after that. I didn't hear a bang. Apparently there was mentioned there was a tree. I didn't see no tree. I didn't see anything. I've gone straight on. I've looked at my mom and I said, Mom, what? I was just in shock. She goes,
not only did Mahek lie to police, she tried to put the blame on Hashim and Saqib and even suggested at one point that they intentionally crashed their car. When confronted with Saqib's 999 call, Mahek broke down in tears but continued to try and manipulate investigators. And Serene, Mahek, and the rest of the 8 accomplices were all charged with murder. Mohammed Patel was the only accomplice to cooperate with investigators and to come clean about what really happened. He was late meeting up with the other 7 that night and was the only person who was unaware of the plan. However, he admitted to investigators that he was handed a metal weapon to use if needed. He also relayed to investigators what he heard Mahek say to Saqib just before they crashed.
Said what, sorry?
Watch what I do to you.
Mahek said that?
Yeah. The race is trying to overtake him, and we're inside the Audi TT. We're still following. Sometimes we're still following. Then Rekhan takes the lead and manages to overtake Skoda Fab.
Okay.
And trying to do like a tactical maneuver and trying to stop them. He's not able to fully control the car and swung into the back of the Seat Leon. And then from there, because Mahek had said, don't damage this car, he had held back. Yeah, so he's held back now, and we're at the back of this pursuit now.
So you say he hit? He can't control the car, did he? No crash though at that point?
No.
No, but
he was swerving in and out.
Swerving?
Yeah.
And she tells him?
Yeah, and then hits the back of, I think, the front of the Leon.
Oh, so it hits?
And hits the front of the Leon.
Okay.
And he's driving is very erratic.
Who?
Race.
Yeah.
Race is driving is very erratic. And now there is a phone call being made from my phone. Number ending 68. Made to Mr. Jamal. From the phone call being made because Rekhan had told me, specifically told me to make the phone call to him, and we're not able to stop the car by any chance. We're not able to stop him in the side of the TT. So now Race has taken the lead. He's got him Rekhan on the phone. I've got Rekhan on the phone. On my phone is making a phone call to Reese. Reese is saying, I'm going to try and stop the guy. I might have to ram him.
So when you made this call, you spoke to, even though it's driving, you spoke to Reese. It's Reese you spoke to?
I didn't speak to him directly.
Rakan's
Rakan spoke.
speaking on his phone.
Right, so Rakan's got your phone.
Yeah. Well, he's not got my phone. I'm holding the phone towards him.
Okay.
Right, yeah, sorry, yeah. Okay, yeah.
He's saying,
I might
Rakan's
have-
saying I might have to ram him.
I might have to ram him. And then he said, yeah, go on, ram him.
So sorry.
Rakan has told him ram him.
Rakan, so Jamal says he might have to ram him and Rakan's told him to.
Yeah.
Trial began in December of 2022. However, 6 weeks into the jury trial, the judge suddenly dismissed the jurors due to an unspecified irregularity and declared there would have to be a retrial. After 10 months in jail, Mahek and Ansreen briefly got their freedom back when they were allowed to return home until the new trial. The retrial began in May of 2023. During the retrial, Mahek displayed very disturbing behavior. She was frequently seen smiling, laughing, and nonchalantly playing games. Mahek testified that she was broken when she found out that her mother had been having an affair with Saqib and that they had a perfect family. However, other witnesses' testimony disputed this, and witnesses recalled that in May of 2021, Mahek and Ansreen were at a party, and Saqib was kissing Ansreen in front of everyone. Mahek also suggested that Saqib had intentionally caused the car to go off the road because he was, quote, the type to do that. She also referred to him as a psycho. All 8 defendants took the stand, with several recounting that they were under the influence of various substances that night. Several of them denied knowing what exactly was supposed to go down and argued that they had no motive to hurt or kill Saqib and Hashim. Both Mahek and Ansreen swore that they did not want any bodily harm to come to Saqib. However, the prosecutor argued that the fact that the men were wearing balaclavas suggested that they were willing to escalate to violence if things didn't go the way they had planned. It was also reported that some of the men had various metal weapons in the car, but it was never proven. The jury spent over 28 hours deliberating and came back with guilty verdicts for 7 of the 8 defendants. The only person found not guilty was Mohammed Patel, since he had cooperated with police from the very beginning. Mahek sobbed as she learned of her fate. Sentencing was held in September of 2023, and the judge harshly addressed both Mahek and Ansreen. During the sentencing, Judge Spencer stated that Mahek's tawdry fame as a social media influencer had made her, quote, utterly self-obsessed with a wholly unjustified sense of entitlement and no apparent awareness of the impact you have on others, oblivious to the damage you do. He added, the prosecution was right to categorize this case as cold-blooded murder. He then turned to Ansreen and said, you were the grown-up adult in the group and you should have behaved like the grown-up adult, but you allowed your understandable concerns about exposure to strip yourself of any rational judgment. Mahek Bukhari was sentenced to 31 years and 8 months in prison. Ansreen was also found guilty of murder and must serve a minimum of 26 years and 9 months. Fellow defendants Rakan Karwan and Rais Jamal were also sentenced to life after being found guilty of 2 counts of murder. Rais Jamal must serve 31 years, while Rakan Karwan faces a minimum term of 26 years and 10 months. Natasha Akhtar, Amir Jamal, and Sanaf Gula Mustafa were found not guilty of murder, but were found guilty of 2 counts of manslaughter. Natasha Akhtar was sentenced to 11 years and 8 months, while Amir Jamal faces 14 years and 8 months, and Gula Mustafa 14 years and 9 months. As Mahek was led away, she blew a kiss to her dad and said, "Call me." For the victims' families, the outcome was bittersweet. Hashim's family said in a statement, "Everyone who knew Hashim loved him. His death is not just a massive loss to our family, but also to our whole community. On that tragic day, he was simply helping his friend, and this resulted in his death. It has been extremely painful not only losing Hashim at such a young age, but also in the circumstances in which we lost him." Saqib's family said they had been shattered by the senseless act which killed him. "We are still struggling to come to terms with the enormity of our loss," they said. "I never imagined that I would have to bury one of my children, that I would spend every waking moment suddenly expecting him to come back and tell me everything is okay, endlessly searching for his face whenever I'm in public, even though I know it is impossible. So what do you guys think? Do you think that the sentences that were given out were fair? Do you think that there were any true victims in this case? Please let me know all of your thoughts in comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe and see you next video.